Welcome back to the Let's Go In podcast, where we are here to help you be happy, healthy, and wealthy. And today we're going to be talking about your ego is not your amigo. And where I want to start this is I want you to imagine for a second that your spouse comes to you and says, "You're such an asshole, you didn't do the dishes." Not that that would ever happen in my household, but it's possible. And your immediate reaction is, well, forget you, and you may use a different F word. You didn't, you know, take out, the trash, or you didn't do whatever they didn't say they were going to do. And it's just a response that your ego is going to have. And now it blows up into a full-fledged fight about you're this, you're that, fingers are pointing. And what's happening is ultimately your ego is being fed because you want to let them know all of the challenges um, that you're having internally. You want to let them know that when you said this, I can attack back. And when you're doing that, you're ultimately feeding your ego. And one of the things that you can do is stop and say, okay, is this actually what I want out of this conversation? Do I want to fight with my wife in this case? Or am I simply feeding my ego to say, it's okay, let me protect? Now, here's the deal. For years, I always said I didn't have an ego and that I humbled it and all that, which that's not really true because we all have an ego. Thank gosh, you need to have that. But what I want you to understand is how much are you feeding that ego when you're, going after somebody? And I can think very clearly there was a business meeting that I had, and I was, at least in my opinion, and according to the majority of the people that knew the situation, I was in the right. And I was being taken advantage of. The deal that we had agreed upon was no longer being adhered to. And the person, I'll just keep it nameless, but we'll call him Ted. And Ted was 100% taking advantage of the situation. Now, imagine that you are in the right. Those that you trust, you've told the situation to, and they understand all that goes into it. And they're telling you, yeah, JM, you're right in this scenario. And so you get it in your head that I'm gonna unleash on Ted. And so and this happened. It happened in Las Vegas, and Ted comes into the room, and it starts amicably because I actually genuinely like Ted. And we start talking about what's happening, and he proceeds to tell me how he's going to keep that going. And I just dive in full fledged about how he's a selfish asshole, how he's taking advantage, how without what I had provided to him, he wouldn't have even had this. And the story just keeps going, and to where I undressed this guy in front of others. And leaving the meeting, I felt like shit. In the moment, I felt like, yes, I'm justified. I get to get this off my chest. But leaving the meeting, immediately I had remorse and I felt bad because I don't like to yell at anyone for the most part ever, especially my kids, even though they get it probably more than anyone. But I felt bad. And so then as I'm talking to the other leaders that were in that room, it had gone from Jam, you are 100% just and in the right, to you really acted inappropriately, and it wasn't right what you did to him to make another person feel that way. And 100% what had happened is my ego got bruised. I felt that because I was in the right, I can just act however I want. And that's just not the case. And what happened is it ended up creating a lot of additional tension, a lot of I'm sorry this happened. And so it went from a position of actually kind of being the victim, quote unquote, or, not, being taken advantage of, to now being somewhat of the villain. And every time that happens, whether it's in a personal relationship, whether it's in this case a business scenario, your ego is something that you need to be able to keep in check and ask yourself, why am I responding this way? Or more importantly, why am I reacting this way? Because often when we get triggered by an emotion, you're going to react, and that reaction is going to be visceral. It's going to be immediate. It's going to be swift, and that reaction is typically not well thought out. It's not calm, cool, composed, and it can lead to some real problems. So one of the things that I do is I meditate on a daily basis, as you guys know, so that I can respond versus react. And so I've never been able, and I don't think anybody that I know has the ability to stop an emotion. It happens so fast. It happens a million times faster than the way I just snap my fingers there. But what you can control is how you respond. And so having those tools to be able to slow down, breathe, focus, and then be intentional about what you're going to say, which is actually a process that I just took you through. I work with athletes on doing the same thing. And in this case, when if you're in sales or you're in a meeting, the first thing, if you get triggered and you can feel that emotion happen where your heart rate goes up, become flush, and now you're feeling angry, a process that you can do is say, slow down, breathe, focus, and then whatever the last one, I usually it's intentional or confidently go about whatever you're about to say. Um, but it gives you time to just wait so that it doesn't come off as some reaction that you can't control. So that's one of the things. We've talked about box breathing. That's another quick thing that you can do, which is simply breathing in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, and then hold for 4 again. And if you do that 1 time to even 3 times, just that pause for 16 seconds is all that is. It's going to give you time to really get calibrated and say, you know what I'm about to say is not well thought out. So let me just pause and collect myself. And often, especially fighting with a spouse, when you know it's going down a bad path, that's your chance to utilize some of the tools, slow down, breathe, focus, and then, intentional. I'm going to be kind or do the box breathing. Even with those tools, if you're unable to collect yourself to where you can really have something that you thought through, just say, you know what, this is not a good time for me to talk about this. We're going to have to circle back on this subject. We're going to have to come back to when I am really not emotional because I want to have an adult conversation. I want to have a productive conversation and I want something good to come out of it. So, Lisa and I, when that's my wife, when we are in a fight, when both of us have become emotional, our trigger word to stop is blueberry. And that's just literally, all right, shut up. There's no more talking, move forward. Now, the funny part about that is often somebody will say blueberry, and then of course a couple last minute jabs get thrown out there, and it is your chance afterwards to say, "Hey, remember when we decided this safe word, if you will? That means to stop. That means collect ourselves. That means to come back and have a rational state of mind. That's why we do that." And it works out beautifully, but I'm telling you that ego need to be fed, to be taken care of, to be satisfied is great. And I just recently watched it with a business transaction where there was a personality conflict. There was a gal working with 2 other ladies, and for whatever reason, there was just a real personality conflict. And I called and I explained the situation from the one person's perspective. Now, again, I don't have a dog in this hunt. I'm simply trying to ascertain, like, what are we trying to do? Are we trying to, uh, get this sale, which is what it was, over the line? Yes, that's what we're trying to do. Okay. Well, she doesn't like you, but she does like your business partner. And immediately that person that was the unliked business partner said, well, fuck her. I don't need to deal with it. Here's why I'm in the right. And just told me the whole thing about how she was in the right. And I listened, just calmly let her get it out because it's a big part of just letting people vent. And then afterwards, I just asked her, I said, what do you want out of this? Do you want to be right and lose the transaction? Or do you want to be wrong and win the transaction? And when I said that, it hit her. She's like, well, actually, no, I just want the transaction. So I said, so here's the deal. You feel right, but if you stay in this transaction, you're going to lose it. It's 100%. It's a guarantee. Said, that's not what I want. Okay, cool. So you would rather be wrong and win the transaction. She said, yes, that's what we'll do. So we proceeded that way and the deal was taken care of. But it's funny, even afterwards, she came by and she wanted to explain to me how she was right and how this person was wrong. And again, in the position I was in, I just sat and listened, said, I have no, I, I, I believe you. I'm not suggesting that you're wrong. I honestly don't care other than I want you to feel okay. And the fact that the transaction got done. But if we think about that in any transaction with relationships, with your business partner, do you want to be right and lose, or do you want to be wrong and win? And I have seen many a negotiation, including my own recently. I had to decide that I wanted to be um, wrong and win instead of being right and lose. And I took 50 cents on the dollar in a transaction. I was 100%. I could have uh, sued them. I could have taken them, and because it was black and white, here's the contract. They're in breach of contract. But what was it? At what cost? What was I giving up? What was the compromise? It was a whole lot of mental gymnastics going on. I was surrounded by people I didn't want to be around. That's why I was getting out of the partnership to begin with. And I had to make a real decision to say, do I want to continue down this road or take what is in my mind the bare minimum of fair, take that and apply all the energy towards something positive. And that's what I chose. And I have to tell you, I haven't thought about the income since, even though that's what was lost, because I've been able to create other sources of income. I've been able to have mental acuity and like real, I feel so much more clear mentally. And so it's just a question to ask yourself is, do I want to be right and lose or wrong and win? And when that ego pops up, just remember to say, hey, my ego is not my amigo right now. It's wanting to be fed. And let's put that to the side. There's one other thing that I've seen people do. Now I don't do it, but I have seen others actually name their alter ego. And so they actually talk about it to say, so if let's just say my alter ego was, I don't know, Jones. So Jones is my alter ego. And when Jones acts up, what it does is it disassociates it from being JM actually in that moment. But Jones is being an asshole right now, not JM. And I have seen it work for people. It's not something I typically employ, but I have watched others do it pretty successfully. So I don't really care what you use for your favorite technique. Again, I gave you a couple that I use, which is slow down, breathe, focus, and then state your intention, and then go into the conversation. The box breathing works extremely well, and those for you in sales, feel, felt, found is wonderful. I understand how you feel. I had a lot of clients that felt the same way you did. Here's what we found. And all that's saying is like, look, let me slow down for a moment. I heard your objection. I want to speak in a uh, intentional, in a very calm manner rather than allowing my emotions to take over. So It's fascinating. You'll see it everywhere. And a couple questions you can ask: is my ego not being my amigo right now? Am I just feeding my ego? Do I want to be right and lose or wrong and win? And this show is all about helping you. Shoot, the whole show is called Let's Go Win. So I would much rather see you go win and tell that ego, step aside. I don't need you right now. So I hope that was helpful, you guys. It's fascinating to watch it happen. And always it's so much easier from the outside looking in to say, oh, they're just feeding their ego. It's harder when it's ourselves. So being able to slow down and ask yourself some of those questions is really important. Share this out with your friends, with your family. The biggest gift you could give me and this show is continue to subscribe, review, and share this out so we can continue to bring you great content and grow the brand, because the show, excuse me, this show is all about helping you be happy, healthy, and wealthy. So until next time, you guys, remember, your mindset matters. I appreciate you all. Thank you so much for listening. If this content is delivering value to you, please make sure to subscribe, rate, and review us. That helps us build this community, and that is what we are all about. Building this community as big as we can, helping as many people as we can, and deliver as much value as possible. Be sure to head over to letsgowinpodcast.com for information on my coaching courses, and make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Let's Go Win 365. Let's go win and transcend in life.
This is the Let's Go Win podcast with your host, J.M. Ryerson.